All right, welcome back, everybody. Hopefully you enjoyed the first video, and hopefully you jumped on to our Crazy Productive program, but we'll get more into that later. So I want to start off with this slide here, because I think it's an important point that we made last time, is that productivity is king, because I think it's essentially understand that focusing on your productivity, it's not a nice to have type of thing, right? It's a must have. If you desire to build a truly healthy and growing company that provides the lifestyle results you're looking for, this is an absolute necessity, is to focus on your productivity. All right. So I love Michael Mankin's quote again in here. Adopting a productivity mindset can be challenging, but the payoff is enormous. Our research suggests that the best companies are more than 40% more productive than the rest. And this difference is productivity results in significantly higher profits, operating margins 30 to 50% higher than industry peers, and faster growth. That's huge, right? And again, in many ways, this is going to be the differentiating factor between those businesses that kind of just float along, not really getting the results they want, versus those that really take off. And again, that's what we want to see you do. That's what a lot of these videos are about. Is just kind of breaking down those components and helping you guys to understand more about the components and moving towards that productivity. Okay, so again, we talked about this last time too, but productivity doesn't come because you talk about productivity, right? Because you implement the components of productivity. So you're not, again, it just emphasizes this is very, very important, right? We're not going around, hey, I need you guys to be more productive. I need you guys to get to work. Like, if you're finding yourself as an owner or a manager, anyone going around doing that, something's wrong, okay? Because you shouldn't be needing to tell them to do things. You should be able to create a business where that's happening. Now, again, I'm not saying there aren't times that you're going to need to give a person here and there a kick in the butt or whatever, but in general, you want to create an environment, a culture where this is naturally happening, okay? And that's by applying these components that we've been talking about, okay? So we went over the four components. In the first video, we went over vision, we went over core values, team, and then we went over systems and processes. Okay, and those are very powerful ones. So I like to start off those because I just think that they're really, really significant to your growth as a business. So hopefully that made sense to you. And then we talked a little bit about the Crazy Productive program. Okay, and again, some of you probably already gotten signed into that. And we'll talk more a little bit later about that. But just a couple of quick things on that. I want you to understand that I do this because the reality is that learning the material versus applying this to your business, they're two completely different things, right? What I know is that people struggle to get this stuff done on their own. It's just a reality, and that's why I create these programs, right? I don't like leaving people with a lack of results. Many programs out there are mostly just content with little support or coaching. This is obviously very different. I'm jumping in with you, and that's a difference maker, okay? And that's really what I'm looking to do. The other thing to understand is that the investment is extremely small for the intended and expected outcome. Okay, I always strive to ensure that my clients get a minimum of a 5 times return on their investment, and that should be extremely easy to happen in the situation. As long as you're a legitimate business and you have some income coming in, you should be able to get just one good idea or anything like that. You should be able to easily get that 5 times return, if not many, many more multiples of that. So this is really for someone who's in the right place, who's ready really to take some steps. This is really easy. Okay. So any more, we'll get into that a little bit more later. But that's kind of what we talked about last time in the video. So now we're going to jump into a few more components. And again, using our productivity circle, we already talked about vision, core values, and we talked some about team, and then we talked about those systems and processes. All right, so we're going to jump into a few more this week. So I was going to start off with communication. All right, now communication is definitely something that's super, super important. And when done well, is going to save your team from a lot of issues. Okay. Now, I love communication. I tend to actually over communicate. So this is definitely near and dear to my heart. When in doubt, talk it out, right? I know that's kind of corny. um, but communication, it absolutely is essential to building a healthy work environment and to building a highly productive work environment. Communication is extremely important to that. Communication, ultimately, it's about ensuring that important information is passed on to all the people it will affect, right? Clarifying goals and expectation, consistent and clear feedback, and much more than that as well. Basically, At all times, your team should know exactly what you expect of them. They need to know how they're doing, where you're going, right? And all those types of things. So, and it's not only that, but it should be delivered in a way that makes them feel empowered, respected, and appreciated, right? Now, all this stuff may take you a little more time and energy to do, but it's going to save you time and energy in the long run when you do it this way, okay? Super, super, super important. Now, there's some communication questions that you really should be asking yourself, and that could be helpful. The first one, what are you communicating? Okay, so what is it that you are communicating? Second, how are you communicating? Now, when we talk about how you're communicating, we're talking both how you're communicating in terms of like how it feels, the way you're wishing doing it, but then also actually how you're doing it. Is it through email? Is it in person? Is it over the phone? And you really want to consider those things based upon what you're communicating, how important it is, because as we know, things are lost in translation, especially in email. I have a love-hate relationship with email. It can be very useful, but it also can be very dangerous, right? So you want to think about how you're communicating certain things and make sure that's being done effectively and the right medium is being used in those situations. And next, when are you communicating, right? And that can be important, right? So it's just like, you know, you're in the middle of the hallway and someone's passing by, oh yeah, hey, can you do this, right? And there's like, oh yeah, sure, sure. And it's just like, okay, is that was that the best time, right? In that passing, or in the middle of, you know, maybe a really busy time, you're throwing something else on that's not super, is that going to be remembered? So you just want to think about when you're communicating as well, and then why you're communicating. And that may sound a little silly, but the point is that sometimes we just need to evaluate, like, why am I doing this? Am I doing this for my own good? Is this something that I really need to communicate? What am I hoping to accomplish by communicating this? And you want to think about that because it might help actually, you may want to reverse that and you might want to ask that question first because it might keep you from actually communicating it, or it might change the way that you do it or who you do it to. So I think those are just some important questions that can be really helpful as you start to put together kind of some systems and processes around communication, but super important and worth the time to do that. So there's going to be many areas where this is going to come into play in terms of communication, and it's got to be a critical element in your systems. So, I mean, just one example, and I may have talked about this before, but like, so for just because it comes up often, is like when you're onboarding, say maybe a new team member or something, right? Are you clearly defining their role? Are you clearly defining the roles of everyone else on the team so they understand that? You're defining their expectations in terms of how they spend their time, who they report to, when they report these things to that person. Like, are all these things being clearly delineated so that when they jump on, they have all the information that they need to do their job the best? Because unfortunately, what I've seen sometimes is, you know, someone comes on, they're onboarded, and they're told a few things, or they're just given a piece of paper, and then it's like, okay, good luck. and then people get frustrated because they're not doing their job as well as they expected the person to. It's like, well, you really didn't tell them what they need to be doing. You didn't really set an expectation. You didn't clearly communicate what they need to be doing. So something to keep in mind. Now, the other thing to consider is, do you have established team meetings where good communication is encouraged and practiced, right? Are those consistent? Are they regular? Now, it was really funny because it's also not just about having them consistently. It's also how you communicate in those meetings. Are you being a good example of communication? Do people walk away from that meeting feeling empowered, or they walk away from that meeting feeling like crap? Right? That's going to make a big difference in terms of how work goes from that point forward. I recently was running a group meeting for an organization that has a new manager coming on board. So they have a new manager coming on board, and so that manager actually sat in on the meeting, but I ran the meeting. Okay, and because I was assisting with this transition, and so I helped to facilitate this initial meeting. So at the end of the meeting, he and I met to discuss how the meeting went and just kind of break down what happened in there, stuff like that. What's funny is he was like giddy with excitement, like he was just so happy about the way the meeting went. And what happened is he talked about his previous experiences where the manager often just came in, just delineated, said, okay, this is what we're going to do, this is what's going to happen, and it just really didn't take the time to kind of hear from other people. There wasn't good communication. It was just very kind of top down, not really supportive, not encouraging. But in this meeting, so I had kind of a general idea of where we were going, but I created an environment where people could speak into the process and the plan, and ultimately people felt heard, they felt appreciated, and like they were generally part of the team. And this manager was super excited about that because that's what they were looking for, but that's not where they had come from. And so that was good to see, but unfortunately, it happens a lot. And so you want to be aware of that. So you want to have those consistent meetings, but you also want to make sure that the meetings are effective in the way that you're communicating. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, communication can be difficult at times too. Sometimes there's just hard things that you need to say when someone's underperforming or issues come up and things like that. However, what I'm going to suggest is that if you've been effectively communicating along the way, it should make that go much smoother. And it should create much less issues like in the long run. Because the thing is if you've been communicating effectively along the way, then what's going to happen is that person is going to be aware of where they're at, because part of communication is making sure that people understand exactly where they stand along the way. So like weekly, monthly, every single month. So when I say weekly, I'm not saying you're going to have like an actual, sit down hour-long review every week or anything like that. But if there's issues that come up, if you have concerns, you're sharing it, you're communicating it, you're not holding on to these things. And again, there should be regular check-ins so that they know where they stand. So there should be no surprises for people when you do things that way, when you communicate effectively, right? And ultimately, so you want to do that in a way that leaves the person still feeling respected, even if they're not the right fit or just not ready to meet the expectations that you have, right? So that's, and again, I'm not saying it's always going to go perfectly. I get that. Okay, I've had enough misses to understand, but I will say that the ugliness that I see often could have been avoided if communication had been done effectively on the front end. And I've seen this in organizations that I've stepped into where they're just like, they're so afraid of communicating in these conflicts that come up, and it's because they just haven't dealt with things in the right way on the front end. Communication needs to begin at the beginning, so it's a little lighter in the beginning. Like, hey, listen, you're really struggling with this aspect of your job. We need to see some improvement here. So let's touch base in a couple of weeks. Let's see how you're doing. A couple of weeks goes by, and they come in, and you give them advice. Hey, you know what? You really have not been moving there. So hey, this is the step we're going to take. What we're going to do is we're going to give you whatever, and you give some sort of put something in place to try to help them. 2 weeks later, still not moving, whatever. Then you say, hey, listen, okay, so this is the deal. We're going to be cutting this from your job because we just feel like you're not performing. And eventually what's going to happen is within a month or two, then maybe you're letting them go, but it's been very clear along the way that that's the direction that it's going. So there's no surprise. There's no like freak out. It just saves a lot of energy and time in that situation. Or it turns, obviously the ideal is that it turns around because you've been properly communicating, giving them time to turn it around. And oftentimes we're not doing that. And it's obviously much easier to keep someone that we can help improve than it is to try to find someone new and go through that process. Okay. So just things to keep in mind there. Now, the other thing about good communication does save you from a lot of headaches and makes an immense impact on productivity when it's done well. Okay. So again, communication definitely something that you got to be really, really focused on. You got to make sure you have a good system for how your communication happens in all the different areas of your business. Now, another thing that next thing that we're going to move on to is very much tied in with communication, and that's conflict resolution. I'm going to be honest with you here. Most people are really bad at conflict resolution. Most people are afraid of conflict, any form of conflict, and that in and of itself creates a situation where conflict is often dealt with ineffectively and not as early as it should, similar going back to that communication piece. Because again, nobody really likes conflict, and so most people struggle with how to deal with it. The first thing is, I think that's key here, is learning that conflict is normal. It's going to happen. It happens in every situation, every relationship. Guarantee it happens in your home. Okay, conflict happens. So it's learning, first of all, normalizing it. That hey, we're going to have conflict, but then learning the best way to deal with the conflict and alleviate. The best way to deal with that conflict, it's going to help alleviate those many issues that get in the way of growth and getting increased results. But first, just acknowledge that, yeah, we're going to have conflict. So it's not a scary thing when conflict comes up, because in a lot of organizations, when that conflict comes up, people get afraid, and then people hide it, and then people do all sorts of crazy things. When in reality is, if you're in a place where you realize, hey, we're going to have conflict, you acknowledge it, you know it, it's healthy. People are like, yeah, you know what, there's a conflict here. Let's talk about it. Let's deal with it. And it's all good, right? So the thing to understand, unhealthy conflict resolution is a extreme time waster and energy drainer. Okay, and that's going to impact the output, which ultimately is going to kill your bottom line. Conflict resolution is a huge, huge, huge time waster and energy reducer. So you can certainly reduce the amount of conflict by applying all the principles that we've discussed so far. Again, like I said, all of these build on each other, and that's intentional and that's helpful, okay? The first and best conflict resolution, obviously, is to reduce conflict, which many of the components that we've talked about and will talk about obviously allow you to do. So that will naturally begin to reduce the amount of conflict you have. But again, there's always going to be conflict because we're human. We see things from different perspectives. We understand things a little bit differently, and we're all going to have certain buttons that people don't realize are there. So the first key is to accept that there's going to be conflict, and it's okay. It really is, right? It's okay. I was just recently having a conversation with someone the other day who's a leader in an organization that I'm helping out with. And I had heard about something that she had done that I would have handled differently. And so I just wanted to communicate that to her as a potential learning opportunity. And so it was interesting. So when I first started talking to her, you could tell she was definitely a bit defensive. And she kind of snapped back. And even though I wasn't accusatory and even stated that this wasn't a big issue, but I just wanted to get us on the same page. So what was interesting, though, is after a little bit more conversation, she ultimately apologized, and she just explained how in most cases she had seen that disagreement had led to significant conflict and ultimately to a place where a lot of the authority figures in her life and managers, things like that, had been very judgmental, and been very mean in terms of dealing with these types of things. And so I just really had to, go over that with her and say that, that's not healthy. And that's not what we're looking to do. We're really looking to create and encourage positive conflict resolution. This wasn't even yet a conflict. This was really more communication. But it quickly became somewhat conflict because of what she had experienced. So for her, it was a natural reaction based on what she had experienced. Now, it ended up being a great conversation, allowed her to recognize some things that she had held on to. It became a great learning opportunity, to be honest with you, and it strengthened our relationship. So this is a good example of good communication and conflict resolution kind of coming together. For me, I could have acted the way she experienced in the past. I could have maybe come to her in an accusatory manner and just gave her a speech about what she needs to do. I could have gotten mad at her maybe when she got a bit defensive. But the point is that just would have increased the conflict. So these are the types of things that we need to think about when we're in these interactions with people, and make sure that we're not doing that. The key to good conflict resolution is trying to see things from the other person's perspective, right? It's treating them with respect. It's ensuring that each side clearly understands one another and seeks a peaceful resolution. Right now, so for some of you, perhaps this sounds a little too kind of, I've used that word a couple times, right? Ooey gooey and rainbows and puppy dogs, that kind of thing. And I understand hesitation. And yeah, there's going to be times where conflict may get ugly, no matter how you approach it, because you can only control you in the situation. However, my experience has been that about 90% of the time, that's not an exact figure, by the way, but if you handle conflict the way that I've suggested, you're going to avoid the ugliness and maintain a more peaceful work environment, which is going to be super important for productivity. The point is it's worth the added effort to deal with conflict in this way, even though maybe it's not as easy, it doesn't come as natural to you. It's going to be worth that. Okay. And so not only do you need to try to apply these things to yourself, but you also need to obviously teach this to your team. They need to not fear conflict, okay, or what they perceive to be potential conflict. When that happens, they're just going to keep things in, frustration is going to grow, confusion ensues, and it's just going to get really, really messy, okay? You need to create an environment that welcomes healthy conflict, and maybe it's not really conflict, but you get the idea. It needs that open environment where people can talk when they just have a disagreement, when there's something wrong. It doesn't need to become a huge thing, that we just need to be able to dialogue about those things. All right. So here's just a few steps to kind of keep in mind for conflict resolution that I thought would be helpful. Just very simple things. First, clarify the conflict. What is it that we really think the conflict is? What's really funny is if you just do this first step, when you first get together, instead of everyone just trying to kind of go at each other, is sometimes you realize there's not even a conflict. There's just a misunderstanding. Like what you thought you were actually fighting about, you're actually not. Like you both think something completely different that didn't happen. So this is a really important first step, is to clarify the conflict. Okay, what really is the conflict? Because again, that can happen, and it's actually kind of funny. Like, oh, oh, you didn't mean that. Oh, wait, you didn't say that. Oh, and it can just really it can just destroy the dynamic right there. So that's an important first step. Hear both sides. So if it's you managing this or if it's you involved in this, just make sure that both sides feel heard. So hey, okay, what's your perspective? And just can be hard, but it's letting the person say, even if the other person thinks it's wrong, whatever, just let them share, let them get it all out, and then the other person get it all out. Right, make sure both sides are heard. So there's clarity. Clarity about what both sides are saying, what the issue is, and then from there you want to summarize. Okay, so basically, person A is saying this, person B is saying this. Is that accurate? And if you're person A or B, then you're saying, hey, okay, so what I hear you saying is this, and what I'm saying is this. Would you say that that's accurate, right? So just kind of summarizing. It's good, makes everyone feel heard. That's a good thing. And then you want to just start going through solutions. So again, if you're a third party kind of to this, you're working with team members, then you may suggest some, you may ask them to. I actually encourage you to ask them to, because what's interesting is oftentimes they can actually figure it out themselves. But you can help with that as well. But you just throw out some solutions, start working through it. And what's going to happen is most people, as long as you've calmed down the situation and people have felt heard, oftentimes they're able to come to some kind of agreement in the middle, okay? And so this is where you implement the solutions. And so you do that and put that in place. And then basically you follow up, like a week later, whatever it is, and say, hey, how things going? Is that good? Everyone feeling great? Yep. Okay. So that's just some basic steps. It's not like a definitive, but it gives you a general idea, a general guide. In case you have nothing in place or you've really been struggling with conflict resolution, this may just be a good kind of guide for you to kind of help you out. Okay. All right. We're going to move on to our next one here, and that is time management. All right. I'm sure it's everyone's best. No, I don't know how you do with time management, but a lot of business leaders feel completely out of control and not productive at the end of the day or week. I've talked to a lot, and it's like, man, I don't know what I did this week. Like, it just, I don't know, the week just goes, and I don't feel productive. And this picture here is great because really what it's speaking to is, I think it's how a lot of people feel, is that they feel like and what's happening is we're allowing our schedule to manage us rather than us managing our schedule, right? And we got to flip that around. Now, many of the things that we've discussed so far, they're going to come together on this one, right? In order to practice good time management, you need to be clear on your goals. You need to understand your team. You need to have good systems in place. You need to be able to delegate, which we're going to get to on the next video. But all these things kind of come together in time management. You can't do good time management unless you've done some of those other things, I guess is what I'm trying to say. As I've said many times, these kind of build on each other, all right? The point is we all have the same amount of time to use each and every day. We can't magically make more of it appear or fast forward. Like, I don't know if you ever saw that movie Click by Adam. Sorry if that was just a loud noise popped in my ears. That movie Click by Adam Sandler. I don't know if you ever saw that or whatever, but he could fast forward time and things like that. And it didn't work out well for him. But the point is we can't do that anyways, all right? So time really it's one of the most important things for us to learn to manage, because it's just we only have a certain amount of time. It is what it is. And obviously there's books upon books about this subject. So I'm going to approach this more from kind of a principle perspective rather than really getting super detailed, because I do think that it works differently for different people. I think there's concepts and things that are pretty straightforward, but I think that the way you specifically work it out can be a little bit different person by person. And so that's the way I'm going to run into that. So first, I think it's really, really important. It's essential to understand your goal and understand what's most important right now. The right now is extremely important, right? Just because you say something is not important right now, it doesn't mean it's not important or that it won't become important. It just means that it's not important right now, right? And so you need to figure out what's most important for you and your team to be doing right now. This is going to be essential to good time management. Essentially, you and your team should be striving to always do what's most important. Most businesses, they're not doing this, and it destroys momentum in a business because people don't even realize why. They're just kind of running around doing things, and they don't even realize it, okay? This is extremely important. So once you've decided what's most important, now you need to ask yourself every time you're faced with something, how you're going to use your time. You need to ask yourself, basically. So what I'm getting at, and this might start getting confusing. What I'm trying to say is, once you've decided what's most important, is now when someone comes to you or a situation comes up, you need to ask yourself, okay, is so I understand what's most important right now. We've decided this as a business. This is our focus. You have to ask yourself when that thing comes up, okay, does this fit that or does it not? Right? If it fits what's most important, then okay, you got to find a way to move that into what you need to do. Right? So you're asking, hey, is this activity going to positively impact what's most important right now? So if not, then it gets sidelined. Right? If it will, then yeah, you throw it in there. Okay. Now, just doing that alone is going to help you immensely in terms of how you kind of manage your time. And so, some examples. So somebody comes to you and asks if you can help them with a report they're working on. So you need to assess whether taking the time to do that is the best use of your time at that moment, right? Does it impact what's most important right now, what you guys have decided, what the goal is or whatever? And if it's not, then explain this and figure out when it will be. So then you explain, hey, you know what? Listen, I get you want to work on that report, and that's great. I'm glad you came to me. So we'll talk about, but guess, we've talked about that. This is the goal right now. That's really kind of on the next step. So let's put that aside and we'll come back to that in, a week or whatever it is. Let's touch base here. Let's see where we're at then. And then you can get working on the right things and you can encourage them to do the same thing. Okay. So the next thing you do, though, is you need to break your time down and assess how much time you need for various tasks. So once you've kind of got a sense of, okay, this is where we're headed, this is what's important right now, here's the kind of tasks related to that, you need to figure, okay, how much time are each one of these things going to take so you can kind of create what that time looks like for you. So now, again, people have a lot of different ways of doing that specifically. And I'm going to show you one way, but before they do that, let me just back up a little bit just to make sure we kind of understand kind of what's happening a little bit here. So we've talked about vision, right? So everything really starts with your vision. What's the big picture? Where do you want to be in 2 to 3 years? From there, what's going to happen is we're going to move to our goals. Okay, so what goals are most important to reach our vision? That's what we do as we build our goals. We're asking ourselves that. Now, understand your goals aren't going to be the immediate. You're going to have to build several goals to get to the vision. Okay, but you're building goals. Now, to get to your goals, though, you need to build some tasks, right? So these are kind of the activities of the day or of the week or whatever. So you're asking yourself, what tasks are most important for us to reach our goal? Now, what's going to ultimately happen then is oops, sorry about that. Then you're going to accomplish your tasks, which accomplish your goals, and you accomplish your goals, which accomplish your vision. So it's like this cycle that happens. Is you build your vision, you build your goals based on what your vision is, you build your tasks based on what your goals are, then you perform your tasks, which help you accomplish your goals, goals help you accomplish your vision. Okay, that's the cycle that's happening there. Now, in terms of time management is this piece right here. What tasks are most important for us to reach our goals? That's really where time management comes in. You want to be asking, okay, so we've got our goals. We have this list of tasks. Right? Okay, how are we going to use our time now to accomplish these things? Okay, so one example of this, one way to kind of apply this is what I call day, week, month, later. I know, super original, right? I tend to be very straightforward with my names. Now, I'm going to let you know right up front that I honestly have no idea who came up with this, but I know it's not my original idea. Okay, just to be clear, this is in some book out there, or maybe in several books. So just being really straight with that, not pretending like this is my thing, because I know that it's not. But it was passed on to me so long ago that I'm honestly not sure where it came from, and it definitely wasn't called day, week, month, later. All right, but the basics of it, the way that it works is basically going to have 4 folders, either physically or digitally, however you want to do that. And every time you encounter a new potential task, what you're going to do is you're going to ask yourself, is this most important right now? Is this important right now? Later or never, right? So if it's never, then obviously you're just going to throw it out. If it's later, then you're going to put it in the later folder. If it's a more important task, you're going to need to decide if this needs to get done this month, this week, or today. And then you put it in the proper folder. So now as you do this, you're basically going to plan each month, moving things in the later folder to the month folder, moving things from the month folder to the week folder, and then moving things from the week folder to the today folder, right? So the key times to manage this are at the beginning of the month, beginning of the week, and the beginning of the day. So let's say you have your folder set up, and let's just say a new email comes into your inbox, and it's something you need to get done this week, but doesn't necessarily need to get done today. So basically what's going to happen is you're going to print up a copy of that email. You're going to put it in your week folder for now, right? That's all you're going to do with it. You don't have to think. Then you don't have to think about it. The next day, you go through your week folder, and there's the email. And based on everything you have in your week folder, that seems to be the most important. So it goes in your today folder, and you get it done that day. So what this does is it allows you, it's a very kind of succinct process. It gives you confidence that, hey, I'm not going to forget to do something, because every time you come across something, you immediately decide, where am I putting it based upon its importance? Is it a today thing? Is it a week thing? Is it a month thing? Is it a later thing? Right? And those things move up, right, as you go through those folders. Okay, so that's just one method I found really helpful, and other people have found really helpful. Now, the key to this, though, is sticking with it, right, and not doing side projects. So if you're doing this, but then you keep trying to do other stuff, it's not going to be effective. So the struggle for most people is putting things off that seem important but really aren't, right? Because we tend to be reactionary, but this can really derail our productivity in a big way. So a team member might come into your office and have a question about something in a new project. Your initial reaction might be that you need to deal with this now because, hey, it's right here, just going to deal with it. We're just reactionary, right? But if you really sat back and assessed it, you might find that, hey, you know what, we can wait because this isn't important right now. And that if we focus on this next week, it's going to be okay. And there's more important things to deal with right now. That's the type of thing you need to be thinking about. Now, that can be difficult because our natural reaction is just to want to deal with things. Because the team member that came to you might think it's the most important thing, then we want to just respond to that. We want to meet that need, right? But the problem is sometimes they can't see the big picture. And so we need to help them with that. So if you're able to do this with consistency, you're going to see a super positive impact on your time management and ultimately your productivity. It's going to make significant difference. Now, I'm sure I don't really need to say this, but obviously you need to teach your team to do this as well. So this isn't just about you doing this. This is, you want to get everyone into a process where they're dealing with their time this way. And that's going to be, extremely helpful. Okay. So in terms of time management, I think the biggest question you need to ask yourself is, am I doing what is most important right now? That's kind of the big question that should always be following everyone around, no matter what specific system you use to help you do that. But as you know, time management is extremely impactful on your productivity. All right. So this is what we've done so far. We've talked through in our first video, we did vision, core values, team systems and processes. This video, we did communication, conflict resolution, time management. And this is all obviously leading towards being productive, building productivity into our business. And again, obviously, that's what I want to help you do. I want to help you really apply these things, not just learn about these things. Okay. So the question I have for you today is, are you ready to commit yourself to 3 months of intentional focus on building productivity into your business? I hope that you can understand how much of an impact this could have on your business. It's really is extreme, and the return on investment in terms of time and resource and energy is going to be extreme as long as you actually apply things and put it into practice. So commit yourself to 3 months, really focusing on the productivity side of your business. Literally could change the trajectory of your business and ultimately your life, because your business should impact your life. What's the difference? Well, I think the difference is, first, I think for those who don't focus on productivity, there's just this dark cloud, I guess, that kind of follows the business. It just kind of feels like crap, to be 100% honest with you. There's a miscommunication, misunderstandings. People are feeling like they don't want to go into work. You're constantly saying, oh, why won't they do this? Why won't they do it this way? Why aren't they energized? Why can't they do a better job? And ultimately, then you look at your business, you're wearing maybe several different hats. You're having to pick up pieces all over the place. It doesn't feel good. It's just not going right. And then you look at your bottom line, and you're like, okay, you know what? I'm making a few bucks, but this is ridiculous with the time and energy that I'm putting in and the things that I'm giving up to do this. What's going on, right? And maybe that's where you're at. The difference, you focus some time and energy on building productivity into your business and really applying these things, working together with me to kind of put this stuff into place, ultimately get yourself to a place where you actually feel really good about going into work, where the people in your business are feeling kind of energized and feeling good about being there, that there's a lot of clarity about who's doing what and how and when. There's accountability in place to make sure that people are doing that, communicating effectively about what is expected, that all these things are just flowing where things feel really, really good. When that happens, there's not all these I guess, um, walls that are put in the way towards you reaching the results that you're looking to reach, right? A lot of that stuff's just unclogged, and you got that, swiftly moving river that we were talking about, that clear, swift river they talked about in the first video. You got that moving, and that just feels awesome. Not even just, yeah, you're going to start making more money in your business, absolutely, because that happens, but it just feels good. It feels like you're building a business of significance, and that's what we want. And hopefully what it should move towards is something we're going to talk about next week, is that balance where you can really kind of live the fruition of what your business is and what it's done for you, and that's a huge part of it as well. Okay, so that's the difference. Productivity changes everything, and so again, I love to help people do that. So in the program, as I've mentioned before, what's included is you're going to get your content sent every week. So we're going to break every piece down in much more detail to make sure you understand it. And then on top of that, we'll get you some worksheets that go along with that. And those things are going to help you apply it. They're going to ask you the right questions. They're going to help you think through kind of what you need to do and how you can implement these things, so we can get super, super practical to make sure that you're doing this. And then we're going to have small group coaching sessions 4 times a month. Again, these are groups of just 8 to 12 people. So you're getting that time specifically with me to help you apply this specifically to business, because I understand there's always nuances. There's always kind of some different things that are already happening in your business, and you got to figure out how to work around them to apply some of these things. That's what that's for. And this is one of the differentiators of our program. Is there's so many programs out there that are you're barely talking to the person who's really building the program, right? It's mostly content, maybe a Q&A call with like 100 people on it or something like that. And I listen, I'll do those things sometimes because I think it can help at least get the ball started for the people, but it's extremely rare because I really, really, really want to jump in with you, and I understand that attention is super, super helpful. So that's what it's for. Not only that, but you're also getting the expertise and experience of those other 8 to 11 people that are in your group with you, and that's powerful, right? That synergy that's created among business owners that ultimately are looking to accomplish the same thing. Super, super powerful, super helpful. So keep that in mind as well. You also get unlimited email coaching as needed. So again, in between sessions, things like that, you're trying to apply things, you run into issues, just reach out to me. I'll be more than happy to get back to you. And yes, that's directly with me. And a lot of organizations, sometimes you're getting someone else. You are going to be dealing directly with me on that. Okay. And then we will have a private Facebook group. It'll be just for your group, just share ideas, struggles, victories, whatever you want. Again, no selling in there. You guys get that by now. But again, it's just another support network for us, right? Another place for us to put and to brainstorm, because we'll have a lot of collective knowledge. I'll certainly be leading the way, but you'll all be looking to help one another out as well. Okay, so that's what's included. I'm giving you everything. We're gonna be really getting some stuff done in 3 months. Now, what I'm looking for from you, again, as I've said, you got to be the owner or CEO of a real business with real revenue. Okay, it's got to be. Otherwise, this just isn't going to make sense. I can help you in maybe some other ways. You can still reach out, but not for this. You got to really want to grow your business. Okay, and I mean, be willing to put in the work. You got to be committed to this program. $10 sessions, do the work. That's just important for the group that we're all invested in this. Okay, and then you got to be willing and excited to help other business owners in the group as well. Okay, so this, yeah, 100%, we're looking to get you results, but one of the things you're going to do is you're going to give back to others as well. And for me, I mean, hopefully you're the type of person that jazzes you, that gets you excited to think about helping other people out as well. You got to be committed to confidentiality. That's huge for me. You'll notice that if you ever talk to me, I won't talk about specific businesses. I don't get into the details of that stuff. I will talk about examples, but I'll talk about them very broadly because I'm very, very sensitive to confidentiality. And I realize some people don't care and some people do, so I just rather play on the safe side. But in terms of this group, we want to be able to get real with each other about our business, but even about life. And so I just want to make sure that everyone is committed to that confidentiality. Okay. So if this all sounds good, then obviously click that button below. We can get started. You'll go in there. You'll get to my calendar. You can set up a call with me. We'll get on the phone just to make sure it's a good fit. We'll get you all signed up, and then we'll get the ball rolling. Okay? So that's how that works. I do appreciate your time very much. I look forward to helping you grow your business. And yeah, that's basically it. All right. Hopefully I will talk to you soon. Okay. Thanks very much.